Well, good morning, guys. Mark Holmes here, and as always, thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Blue Sports Report. Without you guys, this literally does not work. All right, it's time to face facts, okay? Forget about potential, forget about talent, forget about forecasts right now of all these things that, 2 months ago we were talking about the Dallas Cowboys, one of the most talented teams in the NFL, great coaching staff, Super Bowl favorite, that they're built for, the ready to roll for several years now. Well, thing about football is so unpredictable, and a lot of times we believe that teams are going to be good and they end up being trash, and teams that we think are going to be trash, well, they end up being good. That quietly people that you didn't know about, players you didn't know about, all of a sudden step up and become actually really, really good. Sometimes teams actually do well at bringing in a few free agents that make a difference, or a trade that ends up changing a franchise. But there's two things that the Dallas Cowboys, when it comes to building teams in recent history, have been terrible with. Now, you can look back in the history of the Dallas Cowboys, and you could look at one event that really led us to those three Super Bowls, and that was the Herschel Walker trade. The Herschel Walker trade, Minnesota thinking that we were one running back away from being a dominant team. They built, they traded the farm to the Dallas Cowboys. They said, hey, if we get him, we're good. But with those picks and those players, the Cowboys were able to be head and shoulders above everybody else in talent, and went on to win three Super Bowls, and maybe they could have won more had Jerry Jones's ego not gotten in the way. But lightning just has not seemed to have struck twice when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys. It's not from a lack of trying. The Cowboys have tried many different things. But when you look at what the Cowboys have done, most of the really good players that the Cowboys have ever gotten has never been through the trades. It's never been through free agency. It's actually finding the talent themselves. And we used to have coaches that would get talent that fit their system and that they could win with. I don't know if it's Mike McCarthy and Mike Nolan is the problem, or if it's the players, because it's, we're doing this 4-3-3-4 hybrid, things like that. People think that a defensive tackle is a defensive tackle, but there's a different technique for different locations out there. And it may just be that the guys that you have aren't the ones to fit the bill. We already know that the Cowboys tried free agency to say, we're going to, we lost a lot of guys in free agency ourselves. We're just going to go out. We're going to get ourselves a defensive line, and bringing in Dontari Poe, bringing in Emerson Griffin, Gerald McCoy, who didn't get out of the starting gates. I think Gerald McCoy would have made more of an impact than the other guys, guys like Darryl Worley. And, of course, we know that Worley is going to be out, as well as Dontari Poe. We traded Emerson Griffin. At least we got a sixth that might become a fifth-round draft pick for him. You actually, quite frankly, did good with Emerson Griffin. The fact that you signed a free agent and at least you picked up a draft pick. And if he does play well with the Lions, you get a fifth. Hey, you can take that deal all day. I wish we could get a fifth for Darryl Worley or Dontari Poe, for these guys, because then we'd be ahead of the game. But the Cowboys right now are doing a couple of things. One, they're sending a message to guys to let them know that we're looking at everybody. If you're going to be a malcontent in the locker room, you're not going to be here. You either get on board and start showing something, or you're going to be gone. And hopefully that'll grab some attention from some guys. The other thing is when you've seen what Dontari Poe, when you saw what you get from Emerson Griffin and Darryl Worley, you looked at it and said, these guys aren't going to be part of my game plan for next year. Carrying them through just to say I've got players here that I'm not going to keep, I might as well let them go and let the guys that we want to find out if they're worth keeping find out what they've got in the next 9 games. And with with Emerson Griffin, at least, the Lions pick up the rest of his contract. which is good. So you save maybe $3.25 million on the cap, which is great. Any money that we can save will be better. I'm not sure exactly how the ramifications. I think you might save $1 million on the cap with Daryl Worley, and I think you might save two with Don Poe. But if you look at it from the standpoint of they were contracted for next year, what the dead money would have ended up being, I think we save a little bit. It's not much. It's not much, but you save $3 million from Don Poe. I mean, excuse me. You save $3 million from Emerson Griffin. If you save $1 million from Worley, if you save $2 million from Don Poe, all of a sudden you got $6 million, and that's $6 million that you didn't have. But there's two things that have just been atrocious for the Dallas Cowboys, and it seems like we don't learn from our past mistakes. They always say that those who don't learn from the past are destined to repeat it in the future, and that's been the Dallas Cowboys. And we got to get on track with this stuff. The only time we've really had great lights out players are players that we found and drafted ourselves. Doesn't mean we did everything on the field with them, but the first step is getting guys that can play and fit your system. You think about drafting a DeMarcus Ware. You think about signing, an undrafted free agent quarterback like Tony Romo. You think about guys that other people may have not thought of that you brought into your system. And you've done well with them. What we haven't done well with is signing free agents and doing mega deals with guys. I'm trying to go back and think about one mega deal that the Dallas Cowboys have done that you look back and say, yeah, we got value for it. The only one that you can really say we did would be maybe DeMarcus Ware. DeMarcus Ware, he got his big deal, although it didn't lead to a Super Bowl. But from the standpoint of everybody else, and this is not to put shade on Dez Bryant or anything, but Dez got his money and was injured and then out the door. I want to go through, because these are some of this is actually an old article here. This is actually like 2010 maybe. Yeah, this is September 10th, 2010. And this was looking at some of the booms and busts on the Dallas Cowboys. Miles Austin, 6-year, $54 million. Now, this was 10 years ago, over 10 years ago. 6-year, $54 million extension is evidence that the Joes are willing to spend big money for players he considers essential to the Dallas Cowboys' success. This is the 15th contract with a face value of at least $20 million that the Cowboys had awarded since 2006. 15. Okay, see, now think about this now. Now, I know 20 million, you're like, what's 20 million? Quarterbacks get double that now. But we're talking about back then when the salary cap was only like $90 million. So to make that equivalent in today's money, that would be like, say, a $60 million contract. The Cowboys have experienced some booms and some busts with massive deals. Here's a look at the most recent $20 million club, grading each contract on a 5-point scale. Brady James, 5 years, $20 million. And I would say Brady James is probably about equivalent to what Jalen Smith is. He has limitations, but James has led the Cowboys in tackles for the last 5 years. He's also a clear leader in the locker room, very reasonably priced for a productive player who's positively influenced his teammates. Okay. Let's see. Let me go down through here. Jay Ratcliffe, 5 years, $30 million. He's the best bargain on the team. Ex-Cowboy defensive Chris Canty got 6 years, $42 million from the Giants. So just imagine what Jay Ratcliffe would demand on the open market. So Jay Ratcliffe was one of those guys we said we can't live without. Well, he ended up basically, the dog didn't hunt after he got his contract. Terrell Owens, free agent. T.O.'s production justified his contract with the Cowboys, 4 years, $34 million. The second deal ended up being a disaster. Jones tore up the last year of T.O.'s contract, first contract he gave $13 million up front to keep him happy. He didn't even make it into the next season. Money lost right there. Free safety, Ken Hamlin. 6 years, $39 million. The Cowboys got suckered, overpaying after Hamlin had a career season on a one-year make-good contract. He had a total of 1 interception in 2 seasons after signing the deal. The Cowboys cut him and promoted Alan Bell. Marion Barber. Nagging injury. That's clear. Going up too far. Drew Rosenhaus convinced the Cowboys to pay Barber like an elite back, the fact that he never rushed for 1,000 yards. Barber was determined to cash in on a Pro Bowl campaign. He rushed for 975 yards and 10 touchdowns off the bench in 2007. And he got a 7-year, $45 million contract, which at that time was like earth-shattering for a running back. Yeah. You see a pattern here? Roy, well, let me do one. This is enough of the pain, but Roy Williams, he described his 1.5 season in Dallas Cowboys as a nightmare. The Cowboys drastically overpaid in the draft picks and dollars for a receiver who hit the 1,000-yard milestone only once in 5 seasons. 5 years, $45 million, and he was only here for a year and a half. So when you start looking at some of the contracts that we've gone through where we've said, you know what, we can't live without that guy, that you now start looking back and saying, is this history repeating itself? Because we paid Marion Barber a whole lot of money. Another year later, he was gone from the team. We looked at it with Miles Austin. Miles Austin had 1 great season. All of a sudden, injuries plagued him, and the dog couldn't hunt. He went to Cleveland to finish off his career there. You look at safeties and guys. Okay, that right there is just, worst contracts. But when you start thinking about some of the free agents that we've signed, we ended up, and I'm not going to say Brandon Carr was a productive player, but Brandon Carr was never going to be the guy that you looked at and said, yeah, he's a shutdown corner. The expectation for what Brandon Carr weren't realistic, but he had a $54 million deal. You look at Greg Hardy, problem child from the get-go. And 1 year was suspended for 6 games, went after one of your coaches, and you looked at, we got to go. You look at bringing in the kicker, Mike Vanderjagt. How did that work out? We talked about Greg Hardy signing an old running back. Eddie George, played 13 games, 132 rushes for 432 yards. And Brian Westbrook, this one was one of those ones that was just crazy. We signed Brian Westbrook from the Detroit Lions. He was an okay quarterback with them. We signed him to a 1-year deal and was expected big things from him. He played 1 game, and that was it. So as the Dallas Cowboys sit here and reflect, Cowboy fans are saying trade for this guy or, get that free agent guy. Don't sign Dak Prescott because we need that money to spend on free agents. Let me give you one more thing here that this kind of will blow you away. And not all this is on Zeke. Not all this is on Zeke. The offensive line is a mess. The team is a mess. So you can't lay it all on there. However, here's the thing. Zeke Elliott right now is on pace for 258 carries, 1,047 yards, 4.1 yard average, 11 TDs, not bad, but 11 fumbles. James Robinson for Jacksonville is on pace for 245 carries, 1,099 yards, which is more than Zeke, 4.5 yards per carry, which is 0.4 yards more per Zeke, 9 TDs, and 0 fumbles. Zeke Elliott's getting $19 million this year. Robinson is getting $615,000. So as we look at this, and where the Cowboys have gone through and said, I can't live without that guy, those things are coming back to bite them, because what happens is, because you're paying one position so much money, you don't have the money to pay guys that are important to your team, your backups. Nobody has all 22 guys who start the season finish the season. And you have to bake into the cake the fact that I need a guy who can step in when Tyron Smith gets hurt. I need a guy who can play on the defensive line if D-Law is not playing. And this is the problem. We go through and we take big name guys. We got to pay Zeke 2 years before you actually had to. We got to pay D-Law. We can't live without him. We got to pay Jalen Smith. And because you're so top heavy up here, you're going around searching for bargain basement guys down here, guys that are past their prime, guys that are there to get a paycheck. And this is the flawed system. What you have to do is you've got to get homegrown talent. You've got to draft well. You've got to draft well and get that core group of guys, because you've got 4 to 5 years with those guys. And you can't be afraid to say, you know what, we love you, D-Law, but we can't pay you that kind of money. And you let them go and you get a compensatory pick. Do you think D-Law, if he had been stuck on that franchise tag that year, that he would have sat out the whole year? Do you think Zeke Elliott, if Zeke did not get that long-term deal, do you think Zeke Elliott would have sat out for the year? Because all of these deals I keep seeing, I see all of these guys that are truly getting paid. You know, they always say, you don't pay a running back. Their window is short. And I told you guys, what happens with running backs, 4th year is the peak. 4th year is the peak. And generally speaking, they're never the same after that. But now, the Cowboys are hamstrung. They're stuck with a Zeke Elliott contract for a couple more years. You're stuck with a D-Law contract for several more years. And trying to trade them, you're either going to trade them and eat a lot of the contract, or you're going to cut them and you're going to have a lot of dead money. But it's one of those things that the die is cast on those. The only question is now is, how can you cut some of the dead weight to be able to move on and start building this team? The good news is, if you're the Dallas Cowboys, is now you've got a lot of picks. You got the 4 compensatory picks. Now you've got another pick because of Emerson Griffin, and it's looking like it may be a high draft pick. But we are in the same mess 10 years from where we got out of it. From Jerry Jones doing the same thing, saying, I can't live without these guys. Top heavy roster, second level, not real good. Hopefully, third time will be the charm. Third time will be the charm. All right, y'all. Let's see what's going to happen. I know Stephen Jones has his press conference, or not press conference, has his 105 The Fan today. Let's see if that gets as testy as Jerry's did yesterday.